Sugar Valley to order. If we'd all rise and for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lauren, if you give invocation, please.
Our head. Heavenly Father, we thank you for another great day here on earth. Beautiful weather for winter time. Love it. We come to you and ask you for guidance as we make our major decisions here this evening. And we pray that everybody has a safe trip in and a safe trip home tonight. And no summer travel car as well. We also ask you to pray over our country, Lord. We're going to have a tough year or two here ahead, it looks like. And we ask for your overseeing, take control of what we need to do to save our country. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
First order will be the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. They're attached. I did right behind the agenda, and I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Good.
Financial report. Couple things I just wanted to go over. Snack bars, income for this year over last year net is up $23,743. Tank pumping is up $8,376. That's net after all expenses. Golf course net actually was the loss was less, $13,997 over last year. Our assessments are up $47,901. Out of that, $30,867 is for Sugar Valley and $17,034 is for Hidden Valley. Permits are up $43,888. Lot sales are up $65,857. I had heard that there was a concern about security utilities, and I checked. And in the utilities is the security lights for everywhere the electricity will take, alarms, monitoring for both the Hidden Valley and the Sugar Valley clubhouses, and phones for both security guards, and that's Sugar Valley's total is $2,461. Hidden Valley's total is $2,852. Our net for the year, net gain of $184,633. We've also got the PPP loan that we originally got that's been given us $70,300 that will need to be moved into. So this year we had enough in our net profit that we completely paid off the line of credit. So that's where most of the money went this year. But it started out at $178,000 at the beginning of the year, and that's paid completely off as of right now.
We should PPP shouldn't go shown as income.
It shows as miscellaneous income. It's not taxable income.
Okay.
So because you can't leave it as a note. It's not,
you're right. I was thinking income taxable.
Okay. Any questions on the financials?
Will we qualify for round 2 of PPP?
No.
Is it 25% revenue?
No. Okay. Managers report? That's your turn.
You guys, at the last meeting, you wanted me to hire someone to do the minutes, from here on out. I've got Kim Cunningham that's gonna be doing my minutes over here for us, and Vicky Cap, they've both been kind enough to do the minutes. Vicky will be doing them at Hidden Valley. I talked to the guys about the kitchen walls. They finally got me, this week, got me a list of what all we needed to do the walls, and they gave me a date that they planned on, they thought they'd be done by March 15th. And right today, I got a hold of, the man who has the lift for the hood, that's at Hidden Valley, that has to come over here. Within the next week to 2 weeks, he will have it. He will be able to get with our guys, and we're gonna get it down and out of there. As you can see, the dumpster signs came in. Those will be the ones. We've got 4 of them, so we can put up a couple of them at each place, or a couple over there and one here, and have a spare, whatever. So we've got 4 of them to do right now. I'm still getting calls daily on lots, and I've already sold several. So it's starting out earlier this year than it did last year. I've had a person ask me, and I kind of wanted to tell her myself, but I wanted to bring it to the board. They're wanting to, this person is wanting some friends and them to do a community garden out here at Sugar Valley. They want us basically to donate a lot that they can plant a garden on and have people help put it in, but anybody's welcome to get, food off of it. I'm pretty sure I know how that'll go out here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna get tore up and everything else. I don't know I'd have probably told them, no, I can't do it. If you wanna do that on your own, I'll sell you a lot pretty cheap, but I don't know that we need to have a lot out there. What do you guys think about that?
I'm just with you, I'd sell them a lot cheaper if they wanna do it, but I don't think we want our hands in it.
That's what I'm thinking. That's, okay. Burton, anything on the rural water 2 agreement?
Now, before you get into that, I got a quick question. On your material, have you figured in any extra cost on the material here lately? Cause it's about a 25% increase.
It's gonna be higher. I haven't even taken it to town yet to have prices.
Okay, so that's something we wanna make sure you get figured in, cause I know it's a lot more expensive. We priced, OSB today, and it's $20 a sheet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a lot higher than it used to be.
I know. Yeah.
So, sorry.
Yeah, unfortunately, after our short email chain, I haven't heard anything more.
Okay.
If I remember right, were we waiting on some clarity on, the issue of the boring? Is that?
Basically on boring, and there's one statement in there that they sent, basically says they can go over all Sugar Valley Home Association land.
Well, okay, so.
And as long as it says easements, all land owned, the easements of all land owned, I don't have a problem with that.
So the way I read it, and I don't have it in front of me, but that document would be granting rural water district, rural water 2, an easement over, or basically access to get on any property owned by the homeowners association, for the purpose of installing or maintaining those water lines. So the language itself, I think I'm hearing your concern, is pretty broad. I mean, it lets them go anywhere on any piece of property that the homeowners association owns or has an easement on. However, it's limited to for the purpose of installing or maintaining the line. Which means they don't have carte blanche, ability to go anywhere they want, whenever they want, for whatever reason they want. They can get on our property, install or maintain those water lines. And kind of what I intimated in that email is really, if you want to restrict that, I mean, the alternative would be, almost impossibly difficult if you want to say, well, they're only allowed on, this certain, do a survey and say that here's the legal description of the land that they can enter and can't enter, and that's a sort of thing where they can be on these lots. And I just think that, if, as long as you've got that limiting language, is that they can go where they need to go, as long as it's for the specific purpose of installing water lines or maintaining water lines, I think we're okay, and I think we're protected. If you want to get a little more specific, that's fine. I'm more than happy to engage in that with you, but I'm afraid, again, that it's going to get incredibly complex pretty quickly, depending on how you want that to.
Right.
Does that kind of fall under the same, is that where an HOA versus out in the common street? Because normally when you're putting in any kind of a utility, the utility normally has access to get through there. You can't stop them from going through there, right?
That's right. If it's that easy, yes, that's correct. And that's really what they're asking for. They're asking for that kind of permission and power, to say, we're gonna be putting in these utilities, we're gonna be putting in these water lines, and we need you to give us permission to enter onto your property to install and maintain. I say install and maintain, well, let me look at the exact language. It says that, again, the last sentence there, for the purpose of allowing the grantee to install, maintain, and access water lines. So that's the limiting language right there. So you're giving them this access easement would give them permission to enter any land owned by the property owner association. However, it's limited to the purpose of installing, maintaining, and accessing water lines. So it is pretty broad. They can go where they need to go, but it has to be for those three purposes. And if it's not, then they have no permission to be up there.
So one of the biggest fights I've noticed in the past in working on some of this kind of projects was the cleanup afterwards. I think there needs to be something in there stated that those properties will be
Now, I think that,
returned to,
I would 100% agree with you. However, that would be part of the contract, I think, that we discussed earlier. Steve, when we had that meeting, Steve, and we were going over those agreements, that was part of it. That was already in the agreement, wasn't that? That they had to do to restore it to the leases.
Yeah.
Found it.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't necessarily be in the easement. Justin, your experience, do you see that kind of language in an easement?
Not in the easement itself, it's usually in the contract.
Yeah.
When you put a water line through a road down the middle of it, they always have to return it back to grade.
Yeah.
It's always a contraction issue.
And so again, yeah, that's part of the contract between the rural water and this is just the access easement. So that wouldn't necessarily appear in here. And I think that language, I remember seeing and talking about it. And that was, we had a big conversation about whether they were going to run right along the roadway or offset a little bit. And part of that was how they were going to restore everyone's property the way it was.
Right.
I'm confident that language appears in the contract.
but Hidden Valley, they run right down the edge of the road.
Yeah, that's what I think we
Yeah.
talked about.
That way you kind of stay off of the property.
That's
let it
exactly
go.
what.
You're saying that basically my question about why there's nothing about boring and stuff in here, because this is only an easement contract
Well,
or access.
that may be part of it too. I think I also, my other answer to that was, hold on, I guess, I think that it doesn't specifically say boring, I think because it references multiple times, even in that next paragraph, that this is the right to use for the purpose of installation, maintenance, and access to water lines. So, I guess in that installation, boring is covered under that umbrella of installation. If they install it by digging a ditch, if they install it by boring, if they install it by, however they do it, that they're installing those water lines. So I don't know if they need to say that include the specifics of how it's going to be installed, as long as it's for the purpose of installation.
Right. But what I'm saying is, I guess this contract here is only for the access and easement.
Yeah, this is
Right.
Because
just,
in our meeting in there with them, they said they would bore under any paved road and under any paved or
yes,
concrete
that's
driveway
part of that contract. That's right.
and trees.
Yes, and this is a separate agreement, this is just
Okay.
granting them access to do what we contracted with them to do.
I got you. Okay. That was just the part that was scaring me, sure.
Yes, another question I have on that is, are you getting any feedback on the ones that aren't getting water, that you're probably gonna have to move across the property, or down the edge of them?
Well,
Is that gonna be an issue, you think?
I only had, 3 people that I had to contact, according to our meeting in there, or where they've set out that they have to go now, or it's gonna go basically between 2 property lines on the easement.
Oh, there you go.
And I had to contact those people, and I sent them emails, and I've not heard one word back from any of them.
Steve, you might follow up with a letter as well, just to cover our bases. I don't anticipate any problems, especially as I respond to emails, but just have that physical letter.
Right.
Reach out to my mail.
Okay. Okay.
Have anything further, Steve?
That's basically it.
We'll move on to old business. First thing is Bourbon County.
Okay, so this is Justin Macy, the Bourbon County Counselor. I've asked him to come here tonight to answer your questions you guys had last time about, you remember the Bourbon County is about ready to do a tax sale or working through a tax sale. And that tax sale includes many, many lots in the Hidden Valley, the Hidden Valley. Mr. Meeks approached me, that basically Bourbon County's issue, and I'll let him kind of explain this, is just that they're gonna spend more money on this, doing the tax sale than they'll get back in 5 or 10 years. So Bourbon County would like to see if we can make some sort of arrangement or agreement together, I think by which we would buy up a lot of those lots in bulk, and basically save the county the expense, and then we get to resell those, and hopefully be a win-win situation. I'll let Justin kind of tell you more about that.
There's actually some history here, just kind of give you guys some background. When I first did you guys can hear me okay? Sorry, I'm a little tired. Way back in the day, when I first did the tax sale, when I was not a county employee per se, but was doing it as contract labor, you know, it was obvious that there was a problem with Hidden Valley and how the tax sale happened. So, you know, obviously, you have to get title, insurance, title search, you have to do publication, you have to, give notice. And a lot of people that, as you guys know, have these sitting on the lot, they might live in California, they live in Texas, they live all over the country. So I can't get personal service, which is a problem. And then the cost per lot is a problem. So I actually worked, said 10 to 15 years. It's actually, the math is like 40 years for the county to actually get its return on investment. And by the time that actually happens, that lot sells 4 more times. And you guys know that. I mean, it's, and the other problem is during the auction itself, those lots will sell for $5, $10. You'll get the occasional lot that's actually on the lake, but that was a couple sales ago. It sold for a couple $1,000s, but there's only so many lots on the lake that have access to the water that are going to sell for that. So the problem that I'm having, this isn't, and I don't want to come off wrong on this, is that we're going to probably start talking to legislators about it a little bit, because it's such a problem, and the amount of money that the taxpayers of Bourbon County are losing on the one lake lot itself, it's kind of extreme. You guys have almost 70, I sent out the mail letters, I think it was 75 or 79 mail letters that sent out, and so if you take 79 times 250 or 280 per parcel, that's a lot of money. So I've had some fire directors, I've come to your guys' office here, with actually Chairman O'Hare, myself, a couple times, and we've just been trying to figure out a way to solve this problem. This is the first time I've ever been in front of the board. I really appreciate you having me here and talking about this, because it really is, I hope, I don't like the win-win terminology, but I really hope we figure out a way to solve this problem and not keep going down this path, because every 3 years, selling that lot again. And, the amount of taxes on them are, $9,000 problem I'm just trying to fix. I kind of have some ideas about, you know, they sell for $5 each. I really think he's way significant, but, he was here probably a year ago.
Ron.
Yeah, I had a meeting with Ron, Lynn and I had a meeting with Ron, and I'm starting to kind of think, you know, you kind of have an idea that we can buy maybe a certain amount of parcels. And we can't maybe afford all 70 of them, but maybe 30 or 40, and that's better than nothing. It was maybe lump sum them together, like have the auction, say, if anybody really want to pull out, you know, any parcel, they say the parcel name, pull that number out, we bid on it separately, then maybe have one bid on all of them. You know, I know you guys want the association fees with each one of those parcels themselves, but the problem is that 3 years later, they stop paying their association fees, they don't pay their taxes, and then back on sales. And so now, 40 years, you get break even to 80 years. I know that what we have to do, we have to sell the properties, we can't discriminate against any, you know, organization or group or homeowner, but it's just not cost effective. So the other thing we talked about was kind of a land bank. I don't know, if you guys know much about those, but you can take these parcels and they can be dumped into like almost like a holding company. It's kind of what your association is already, because the taxes get wiped out. It's held in there, you guys can use them, you know, as you want, sell them as you need to, or you know, who you decide to give those to. So that's another option too, that in that land bank per se, there wouldn't be, property taxes wouldn't be paid until they're actually put back into the open market. So that's an idea. You're gonna have to, Mr. Harding's gonna have to do some work to set you guys up in land bank, but that really to me is another option that can be done to help solve that problem. Because then that parcel goes into the land bank, it sits there, no taxes paid on it, so. And I'm not real sure how, I mean, obviously, the city and the county can have a land bank, I'm not real sure how a homeowners association would be able to do it. So you might have to give some of that control up to, you know, the county or, you know, third-party group, but at least you're not paying taxes on it. And it can be used however you want to, after somebody wants to buy it. I've also looked at you guys' association, bylaws and stuff. You know, obviously, it'd be awesome if you take certain lots and make them into bigger lots, but that's not possible. From what I've read, it's hard to, tell me if I'm wrong, but it's really hard to make changes to your guys' association bylaws, which is, on some level, unfortunate, because to me, Sugar Valley, Ken Valley are kind of two different worlds. They're both really nice places, but they have a different feel, a different kind of environment, and different setup. So, I mean, you have a lot more, well, I should say this is my opinion, I'll stick to it. I mean, Sugar Valley, in my opinion, has more lake access, better arrangement around the lake, where Hidden Valley is kind of a valley, and so you can't build up on a, some of your lots you might build on a ridge, which makes it more hard to build on. So,
The other advantage for us on part of that too is it seems like every time we sell a $5 or $10 lot, you know exactly what we get out there too. I'm at Hidden Valley, he's at Hidden Valley. And this will stop that, because if we own them, then we've got control of where they go.
all right, I'm the ex-county attorney in Bourbon County, and I think that it's gotten way better, way better. When I first started as county attorney in Bourbon County, I mean, Hidden Valley was, this place that was pretty dark.
We're still working on it, trust me.
I'm not saying dark is a race issue, I'm saying dark is very scary criminal activity was happening.
It's slowing down.
Yeah, it is big time compared to what it was, but I mean, but even then, like you said, if someone buys that for $5, they go out and park a trailer on there. You guys have to go through the process with Mr. Harding to get that person to move, but if they fall within the lines of the association, you're gonna have a hard time getting out there. I mean, I know that our sanitary person, Mary Bailey, and, you know, Clint Anderson, who's now in charge of that, they've had problems with it now about people. I don't think that is a problem in Sugar Valley, I don't perceive it that way. So, it's just this global problem that it's no fault of anybody, it's just trying to somehow fix the problem. And I know if you guys buy, you know, let's say you buy 60 of the parcels, and there's no way to put it in the land bank, whatever, you're gonna pay the property taxes on those 60 parcels, you don't get a break on them.
Can we put that?
There's no tax abatements we could get for kind of helping you guys out, like you scratch our back and scratch yours.
Well, you know, I thought about that, we have an NRP, you know, neighborhood revitalization program, but unfortunately, you're not gonna be improving any parcels, they're just kind of sitting in limbo. And so, $3 to $10 a year adds up, and you have 8 parcels. That's a
when we have to do our own title search though, if we take those lots back, for us to be
Well-
able to get to sell it?
Well, here's the dark story, the dark theory that is really scary for everybody that is involved in tax code. So for you to get your title, get actual title insurance, now, if you're gonna get quick claim deed, to actually get the title insurance, you have to get personal service by statute. So that's a problem for you guys with your association too, because you can't find the person that actually collected fees on, you got the same.
Right.
You guys have had foreclosures before, and I know that you have run into that same problem too. So it's a matter of getting personal service, but you've been served, and then you can actually get title insurance on it. But the minimum mandatory level of, what I have to do is just publish. Now, I do send out the green cards, those certified. If they sign that, that's personal service, but I can't hire somebody, process somebody to go to California, you've been served.
That's what I'm saying about us. I mean, if we take these parcels, I'm dealing with that every day now, here and there. And I'm finding these ones that we think we own, that we're still paying taxes on, and shouldn't be because they're still back in the limited partnership's name. And they're all dead, those people, so that has to be a quiet title then.
Right, well, that's, I'm not an expert on your bylaws. I've spent some time looking at it because I was hoping to solve that problem some years back. That to me, I think is one of those that, if you really could change anything in your bylaws, that would be it. Because getting personal service, if you had a hard to do personal service on a $300 lot, the process would alone be $85 an hour in most cases. And they're not doing it for something, they have, it's not cheap, you got to publish the newspaper, you got to file on the court, and filing fees, publication fee, and just your server is gonna cost you, $600-700. And not even a certain time, so usually we clear title, your company is under $2,100, and the parcel's only worth $300 or $400.
Right.
You're running into that same problem with having a tax sale, because it would take you 5 times to sell it to get your money back. So, I know statutorily, there's some ways that Bert and I talked about, somehow clearing that title off from the actual sale happening. And we're gonna look into that a little bit more, but my Deb's telling me that it's very hard to do. Because the title company is the same one in Lake County as it is in Bourbon.
Well, one of the ways, and I'm a little more optimistic about it than Justin is, I think, because I've been looking into, like I said, we've been going over this very problem. And I'm not convinced that what can be done is, should the board work any, whether land bank or sell, whatever, buy 79 lots. I think that, and of course, part of this is up to the judge, but I don't know of any reason why we wouldn't be able to do one quiet title action, just a quiet title, all 79 lots, just listed, 79 defendants in one action. We have one filing fee, one court action, and of course, it'll be a fair to create that petition. However, you guys are in the advantageous position, you just worked out a contract, you're not paying me by the hour, but except for litigation, so if somebody filed an objection with the court, that'd be something different. But, I think we could work this out where we can do, as long as the judge doesn't put any roadblocks, and there's no guarantees about that, we could do a quiet title action and get good title so that you can get title insurance.
So could we find this out ahead of the sale?
Yeah, Judge Johnson would be the one that would take care of the cases in Bourbon County for that, for what he's talking about. And for me, I would give all the support I could, but obviously that would be the association's responsibility and Mr. Harding, if I can try to help I would absolutely help and verify what's going on, but for me, my job function is X, this is Y, so.
So how much is the county wanting for those 79 homes?
Oh, they're gonna sell for $1 each. They also, my average, my recollection of prior sales, if we got $50 for one of them, we're happy.
I think and Justin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the things he's proposing or talking about is instead of selling these one at a time for $1 at a time, the county packages up,
Yeah.
they were selling these 79 lots for $79.
You would love to have somebody come in and buy all 79 of them for $10,000, so you get 79 times 150, that, I think it's still 150 that a year for your association fees, so.
184.
184.
Yeah, so yeah, if they sell, if we bid $100 on 79 lots and somebody bids us, then again, for a win-win, whoever buys them, has got to pay the stuff to them. anyway, or back here, I suppose, but, otherwise, the association would get those, and then, of course, still need to clear that title, but.
See, next year's sale, you're gonna be in that 40 to 50 range, and I mean, about every year, it's gonna be, 35 to 45, to 50 on some levels. But for the next 4 or 5 years, we're gonna sell you that same 40 to 50 level lot per year. If we're going back 16 back, so 17, 18, you're gonna have not quite as many, but you're still gonna have quite a few, so.
So we're going to be going through the same action again
Right.
next year.
Yeah,
And so what you guys, I think, is if I can do what I think I can do, or what I hope I can do, we can get good tiles for that for next to nothing. With one publication fee, one filing fee, I mean, for $600, we could get good tiles at all 79 lots if things go.
Because it's $679,
Right.
79 lots.
Yeah, so then if this works out, if all that works, all that goes the way we hope it does, now you own those 79 lots, and you are paying $5 to $10 a year in taxes for Bourbon County. So if Steve can work his magic and sell enough of those lots to offset what you guys are paying in the taxes, then it's a wash for the board.
But you get, for me, on your guys' end, what I think would be the awesome part is you gotta take control of those lots. You're not selling to Joe Schmo or Betty Lou Boo, they're
Now-
selling to the association, you guys can clean the lots up, you can get the trade, I mean, I know a lot of it's cleaned up already, but you guys can have control of that, and trespassing, have to, forfeiture, I mean, you got complete control of those.
Now, the other end, the nightmare scenario is that nothing works out the way we hope it does, and we can't do this all in one fight. We've got to do all these filings and platings, and then we're, but he said, boy, now we're dumping hundreds of dollars into each individual lot, and again, if 3 of them say, I disagree, I want my day in court, and we got to litigate, and then we're paying to have 3 contested hearings in court, then we're spending tons of money towards it. Now, you asked earlier, is there any way we can know ahead of time? Not really. The judges are not very accessible in this way. I mean, we can kind of try to feel it out a little bit and get some pretty good guesses, I think. But there's no way to know, and there's certainly no way to know who's going to object. Now, I'll ask Justin to me too. I highly doubt even maybe one person would file an objection.
Well, I've never had an objection from anything about it, ever.
Yeah, so I think that's extremely unlikely. My fear.
I've sold hundreds of them now.
So what's it gonna cost to do a land bank type thing where we don't have to pay the
Well,
tax?
that's a good question. I actually haven't looked into it at all. Justin made the comment earlier that typically that's a city or county thing, which is exactly what my,
Is there some kind of agreement that we do?
Governmental.
with the county on
I mean,
it?
it's a governmental, we have, the city of Fort Scott has an ending. And so the county would have to set it up, and there's money involved. The issue there is, twofold. One, the county puts that one out there, but Commissioner O'Hara is very interested in not spending the, $30,000 or $40,000 a year to have his value parcel sold in the tax sale. So there would be cost benefit analysis. But you guys would lose control of, potentially lose control of how those lots are given or sold to individuals. You guys would obviously be on the board, but you wouldn't be able to have your thumb on it as well as you would the other way that.
If we bought it and Steve could sell it to whoever Steve.
Yeah, that's, as long as it doesn't cost us a bunch of money to be doing it, that's all right. That's where we need to be.
But see, the other thing that we're gonna start working on, I've got actually some meetings set up with some legislators pretty soon about this, is having a minimum amount. One, a minimum amount of what needs to be paid for taxes, if there's a $3 or $4 fee every year, that doesn't pay the postage to actually send the information out. So having like a minimum of $10 or 20, whatever those people above us decide. And the second part is actually having a minimum mandatory amount to foreclose on. So instead of $179 or $200, which a lot of these are, having that be $1,000 or $500 point, and we're at that point now where we're really trying not to spend every year huge sums of money to collect literally $5 and then have it be back on sale again. Because some of these parcels, they literally have sold it. You guys know this, go like this.
I've already checked your lot, your place is already on the tax sale.
I bought my one lot from the tax sale, and we talked about $2,000, just can't sucker on my head. Oh, you want to buy the one for $2,000? No, I think I paid 14. This is 10 years ago. I did it 10 years ago. So, my question is, because you mentioned earlier, I like all the discussion of this, but the mechanism for someone, and a little bit of devil's advocate, because I had to go through the process because I wanted to acquire a lot next to me, and another guy was at the next tax sale, we got into a bidding war, he ended up buying it, so, if there's a mechanism where you can pluck a certain lot out by request, I don't know how you do that. I think it probably, the first thing is, if somebody's gonna go to that trouble to do that, they're gonna be a good member, pay an association fee, pay the taxes, and hang on to that lot. I mean, I grew up going to auctions, you know, my dad was a quarter, so what we got to do quarter. So, what we do is, if you 79 lots, I would say, anybody want to pull out one specific lot? So, if 10 people say 10 different lots, pull all of that, so it's individual. So, it would look the same as the regular tax sale, and then, what I would say is the remaining lots will sell for X amount of price. Yeah. Now, if there's another worst case scenario, is somebody comes in, and you guys only want to spend $1,000 on those 79 lots. Someone comes in and gives $1,001. Right. I can't say, oh, sorry, sir, we can't take your bid, I have to go to the highest, statute says I have to go to the highest bid.
But even then, that person's on the hook to pay the.
A lot of associations.
79 times 184.
But okay, let's say somebody buys them, just because they say I can buy 80 pieces of land for $1,000.
Right.
They don't have to pay us our dues. If they just sit
Oh,
on
yeah,
them.
they
Yes,
do.
they do.
Well, no,
On
I'm saying,
every
yeah, I'm
lot.
saying, no, exactly, I'm saying they do, but I'm saying like, what just prevents that guy from going, oh yeah, I'll pay you when I wanna pay you. Like, obviously, everybody's going through this again, like, there's no, what I'm saying is like, when he makes the tax sale, he's not paying $179 per lot when he does that, right? Like, this is totally separate from our due collection.
Oh, yeah, right.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, like,
Like, tax is completely separate.
okay, that's what I'm getting at, yeah.
But there is a problem that I've seen in years past where somebody did come into the tax sale and bought 10 or 12. I talked to a lady that flew in from California and was there to buy them because she had an online business to sell all these lots and set up a website and did all this, paid $5 per lot, and was selling her website. She only was selling for $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, and she only had to sell 2 or 3 of them to, make a profit on it. So I don't know if that is still a climate, that was kind of a thing that's borderline on criminal. Yeah.
But even-
It was really shady, but they actually had she had a year, or what she's claiming you with. I've got free land for minimal cost, because I'm not gonna pay the taxes, I'm not gonna pay the association fees on it, and give me, she thought she had about a year to market them and sell them. She sells one lot, she gets done. Yeah, and then she doesn't care, and those are probably the same lot. Yeah, I don't know what your association questions, sounds like the questions are really good, but, someone lives in California, like your association fees, you're gonna have to go through the same process that we're going through the tax sale. It's actually harder to cut your association.
That's a good idea.
I'm just trying to, I don't like the alternative, changing the legislation, it is unique to the state of Kansas, I know the county's got a lot of associations in them, but, the way that we're turning around these taxes, parcels in Hidden Valley every 3 years is detrimental to the taxpayers, it really is a gigantic, it's a gigantic tie, it is I don't ever know, I'm hesitating to put my words, I don't want to say the wrong thing, it's really tough on the taxpayers. It's
Justin?
not affordable.
When is the tax sale?
The title company right now is kind of, they're really busy, because there's been a lot of housing stuff going on in Bourbon County, so probably the title work's gonna come back probably March, April, so the tax sale will be June, July, probably now.
So we've got some time.
It was gonna be April, May, but the minute I file the tax sale, you know, we have to have our decisions made, because at that point, I'm going forward and selling parcels again. We delayed a couple, 2 years on invalid properties, because we're looking to come up with you know, at some point, Ron was talking about an actual, maybe a land bank. Get one from the association.
So I'm happy to look into a land bank and research land bank. Like I said, I have not done that because up till now, my understanding is like I just said, the governmental thing, and I think that applies to us. If he thinks that it does, I'm more than happy to look into that, and that seems like it'd be a good idea, but I don't have any answers for you today about that.
So this is something we can kind of just talk about, the next, I guess, will be one, but. we don't
I
make-
would think that's what you wanted to
Yeah.
do, to take a look.
Yeah, that's good information, I think, let's chat about it, let's get the new board on.
Yeah, whatever makes it a win-win for both of us.
Right, yeah, because it, you know, 30 to 40, just for the invalid lots, you take 79 times 280, and, you know, that's $40,000-$50,000, and it's gonna be that way every year. And it's just, we'd rather take that tax money and put gravel down on all the roads out there, you know, or we pay, that's a half mile of paved road. It's just time on that. And then it might not be solvable, we might just have to keep doing this and try to figure out, you know, ways down the road to get it better. But I'm gonna go in front of the legislature at some point and say, look, we gotta raise the minimum of what the taxes should be, and then also a minimum mandatory top, you know, not for the actual tax bill, because $200 for a tax bill, it costs you $280 to. Doesn't make sense.
I guess I got one more question for you.
Yeah.
Before the tax sale, I mean, you guys, I know we can always call Lynn County for sure and ask them if that's been personally served or not.
Right,
Would there be any way of finding out
yeah.
if those are personally served, and then maybe we buy, if you've got 50 of them that's been personally served,
Yeah, I don't.
because they're fairly local,
Yeah, we don't have that kind of luck. I would say that personal service is probably 30%.
30%.
Yeah, and a lot of those people are the people that live in Lynn County and Bourbon.
Right.
You got some people in Allen County, like when I said the demand letters, I would say Kansas City, Texas, California,
Right.
you know, and, you know, in this case, they're close to 6 years behind the taxes now.
Right.
And I guarantee these people, I'd like to take the list and see what association, if they're paying their association fees, because I guarantee they're not.
If they can't pay their taxes, they're not paying our
Right,
fees.
yeah, if they can't afford a $10 or $20 a year tax, they're not.
Well, thank you, Justin, we appreciate it.
Appreciate it for the invite, and I'll come back too, and if you want to invite me back in a couple of weeks or a month or two, I'll bring Lynn too, because that's how much money's involved in these.
Yeah, awesome, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
Yeah,
Appreciate you.
Good to know. Be safe. Thank you. Yeah, no problem.
No, he couldn't be here. So next item on the agenda, Robert Kemper towing out by the today. He texted me a minute ago and said he can't make it. He could zoom in if we need to, but he had an accident, so he got called out to, so he wasn't able to make it.
Okay, Steve, did you tell Steve, because Steve just went outside to get him. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. I'll see you.
Did you find him?
Nope.
So,
Vernon said that he wasn't gonna be
yeah,
down.
so I asked him to be here tonight. He said he could, then I texted him later saying he got called into an accident, so he couldn't be here, but he could zoom in. If you guys, I don't know if you have that capability, but if you guys wanna try to call him in, I can see, or I don't know what your time schedule's like, we can try it again next month, or
I just-
Maybe that next month.
Maybe next month.
Yeah,
I'll do this.
Okay. Next item is the Deborah Veatch letter. I think Steve made everybody a copy of that.
You have an extra copy? I'm curious about that.
Is there one over there?
no,
No?
About Dave's copy.
go get it, there's, yeah.
Um, And each one of the
Yeah.
paragraphs, okay.
Yeah.
Sugar Valley Lake, Homes Association Inc. permit restrictions, motorhome camper trailers, summer temporary camping. Number one, association permits are required for any motorhome, camper trailers placed on any building lot for summer temporary camping. Permits are not valid until association security has inspected said unit for location, type, size, pad type, and condition. Security will place a current permit sticker on the window facing the street. Do we have any items you wanna discuss, yell when.
I think what she's done there is she copied everything that's on our summer temporary camping permit restrictions.
Yeah,
She has added number 12 down there.
okay,
We only go to 11.
okay.
I totally believe that's what she did.
Let me chime in one quick thing, just, this may already be done, but as far as this permit sticker in the window, I don't know if we have any, I know that the lot that we've got over here, we talk about the boats and the RVs we want to get rid of, those all have stickers on them. But we have no idea, no records been kept, we have no clue who those are. If we're gonna require these permit stickers, I'd very much like to have a system in place where we've got, 95 is John Jones and
Yeah.
lot 388.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's all, I don't know, if that hasn't been in place, I just want that to be added.
And that's, we're working on that right now with spreadsheets and stuff. Our problem being, we don't, and we need probably to put the year on the sticker itself. Because what we do to try and save money, those stickers aren't cheap. But to try and save money, we switch out, okay, this year boats were green, RVs were something else. We have several colors. Well, when you've got a big stack left over from the one year, okay, well, what do we use the most of? Boats, okay? Next year, we're gonna use this for boats, because we got the most of them. And so we continually reuse, because we don't wanna stack of them that cost us $150 like this.
I don't know how visible it needs to be, but I know that we could do, list on the bottom, 2020, 21, 22, 24, and then hole punch whichever year it is, that way you can buy
That was-
500 of them and use them for 10 years.
Right. Yep.
I read through this, I have no issues with it at all.
The only problem I had issue on was on she's coming up here with the pad. A lot of these don't have pads underneath them. I mean, it'd be nice if they all had pads under them, but
I mean, a pad could be,
It's gravel,
Gravel.
big gravel pad,
I mean, you can do a gravel pad for $500, right? I mean,
they're less.
or less.
I mean, I don't think
Yeah.
that's too terribly much to ask if we're gonna do it.
My issue with campers is that you have somebody that they've got a nice camper right now, they come and they're coming and then they leave it and then something happens. And then they don't ever show up again. And then you got the camper that's on the lot that's got all the weeds growing up and then everybody's bitching because it's not in good shape.
She's got some wording in here on that though,
But I think.
But
number
we're
10.
coming down to the same thing that we're doing right
I mean,
now.
I think it's an annual thing, like where, okay, they got the 2020 sticker, right? So for 2021, maybe we task security with it where they need to go to the lot, make sure it's still.
I have an
So what are
idea.
you gonna do about it if they
Well, then
don't, you can't take it off the lot?
I mean, if we're,
That's kind of what he was talking about. We have a process to take them off the lot. This is kind of giving
Yeah.
people the ability to keep them on. And to me, the answer to your question is simply the same as it would be with a lot of things. In order for every year you have, like he was saying, every year I gotta get a sticker. And part of that process seems to be that you need to get, something from your neighbors that say that, that they're okay with that. Because, they're the best line of defense. If they got something that's dilapidated and it's not being taken care of, they would be the ones who would know that. And really, are we gonna honestly have somebody from Sugar Valley that's gonna be appointed to do that? I kind of seem that pretty unlikely. But if your neighbors are fine, like if I have a nice home and somebody wants to put a trailer next door to me, technically they weren't supposed to be able to leave that there year round, but I know it's a nice trailer. I know these guys are good people. Heck, that trailer might be worth more than my house. Then of course I'm not gonna have a problem with that. But if I have a beautiful home and somebody wants to put something that's rusting away and you're questioning whether it has the right, sewage and everything else, that's gonna be an entirely different issue.
Well, could you make it contingent that like essentially for them to apply for the permit, they have to agree to the terms and conditions, and if they don't stay up with the terms and conditions, could you actually have something where
That's exactly how we should structure it. If they apply for this permit, part of that application is signing off that if they don't keep it up, then they consent to the homeowner association hauling it off the property, for example. If they don't keep it up or what have you, it'd be some part of that application process would be a sign or some waiver that I agree that I'm going to maintain this or pay my fees, keep it up, and if I don't keep it up, or if I don't have a up-to-date current registration, if I don't pay the fees, then
and it could be, a pretty laborsome process for them to get this permit, just to show that they want to put the sweat equity in to get it, right? Like, if you come up here and you know you're a shit camper and you don't plan on doing it, are you gonna fill out the process? Are you gonna pay the application? Are you gonna do that stuff just to walk away from it? Most likely not. On the flip side, if you've got a $50,000 camper.
I don't think we're disagreeing. I think what I'm getting at is that I like to be able to say as a homeowner, if I wanted to get this permit, then maybe my neighbors might have a problem with it. And I don't say that they should have to automatically be able to say I can, but maybe they should have the right to challenge it so that it has to come before the board, and then the board can investigate it. And we can, then I'm saying, well, this thing's a piece of garbage, and they can come and go, here's a picture of the trailer, it's a 2014, blah, 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 and then we can make a determination. I just, I think there needs to be a set process for that, and I don't really think we're disagreeing. It's
No,
just
I think
really
we're
how
on
we
the
get
same
there.
page, yeah.
Yeah,
So there's some analogy here to municipal zoning law here, which is, I think, kind of exactly what Steve's describing. Sorry, Mike is describing, that if, for example, if in the city, any city, you wanted to put a trailer on your lot and that's against the code, or run a business that's not zoned commercial, you'd have to ask the city for a conditional use permit, say, I want to use this, I'm not zoned this way, but I want your permission to do it. And every time you do that, you have to notify every homeowner within 200 feet of that property, to put them on notice, to give them an opportunity to come forward and object, say, I live here and I'm opposed to it, and that comes before the city council or the county or whatever, and then they make exactly what Mike's described. So it can be structured really analogous to the zoning conditional use permits they have in cities and counties to say, if you want to put a trailer in a lot that's not meant for trailer, then you need to apply for this, I'll call it conditional use permit. Any neighbor within 100 feet has to be notified. We're going to have a hearing on it at the next meeting. Anyone who has an objection is free to show up and voice that objection. If no one does, then the board can do it. If someone shows up and can convince you that that's not in the best interest, then that's your decision to make.
I think that's a good idea, and it takes part of the load off the board, because if you got a crap trailer sitting there, then you're gonna have 2 or 3 neighbors in here giving the guy bits too, get rid of it, clean it up, so.
But we can overrule anything. So if you said, what I don't want to see happen is somebody's just mad at somebody, they're like, well, I don't want their trailer there anymore, and they come out and.
No, it would be, again, exactly what Mike's describing, where it's kind of a tribunal process.
I think
where
it's
they can come here and make their argument for why it should or shouldn't be allowed.
I think you'll get a pretty good feeling if it's personal pretty quick.
Oh, yeah.
When somebody comes out here, you'll know that it's personal.
Yeah.
more than-
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. She mentioned that she's on the architecture committee, which is true. She doesn't represent the architectural committee. I'm on the architectural committee. I don't represent the architectural committee, so this is just for me.
there's been discussions within the architectural community, and the main purpose is, it's all about taking your camper off in the wintertime. That's the issue, the real issue, not 12 items that's on here. So in my opinion, we're killing the fly with a sledgehammer. If we just want to have a permit to allow somebody to keep that on there, then can we have this little short thing that just says you can apply for a permit and you can be granted a permit on a yearly basis and not go to step number 12, which you have to, there's a couple other steps that are being added on there that don't exist right now. And we went through this we got this process of our rules and our fine system and whatever, which I think covers all of these other items through this process that you as the board just went through, and really covers everything that's on here. So I don't know, all this work needs to be done, all these permits need to be printed, one permit, some of the classes on, like go to item 12. Do we really want Steve and his staff responsible for, on October 31st, a different sort of NP issue? You got October 31st, which is a different date from what,
It's April 1st, November 1st.
there you go. So it gets a little bit complicated. I can't even figure it out here. I just read it once, so I haven't studied it. But I think you can see my point of we're trying to do something good. Deborah's trying to do something good. There's been a lot of discussion, and when we had real board meetings, people showed up. They really want to keep their RVs and their campers on their lots year round. All they want to do is be able to come in to the office and say, I'm here to get my permit, and you give them a permit, and if it's got flat tires, it's in places, junk cans, whatever, you just got that fine system, that's already done, no more paperwork, no more rules, no more adding to our paper trail there. So I'd like the board to slow down a little bit on it and think about that as being the remedy. And if there's some, discussion that needs to be made or something I'm not seeing here, so how.
I think it's wordy, but it says what you want it to say about the porta potties, easements. I think you probably want to be a little too analytical versus broad.
I mean, that is how I fall. I'm kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum. I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate what you're saying, and that's a totally valid position. I'm kind of, again, on the opposite side where I get that perspective, absolutely. However, I think just to protect the board and everyone, that the more detailed we are and the more we have kind of lined out and the procedures for everything, just the more clear everything is and the easier things to go. And I get that can be like a sledgehammer to apply. You're not wrong, but I think that, there's a reason why you look at Chicago's code. I mean, it's big, and they have to do everything.
I think it leaves less up to interpretation, essentially, what I think it was. Like, this 150 gallon holding tank. I don't know what that is. Like, I don't know if that's a normal size, a small size, or big size, but if that's the standard size, I can see why they want somebody to have the standard size, if that makes sense. Like, I think the,
Standard size 1,500 gallons.
for a,
So I don't want to.
there you go.
I'm not really fighting with you on it. I'm just saying I've got a different perspective. There's not necessarily a right or wrong way to do it. I would do it opposite to you, but I had a conversation with Mike once upon a time about adding in some rules and stuff. And Mike said, that would kind of kill the feel and that's your valid like.
That's my deal too, don't get too really.
Yeah.
Aren't we only talking about number 12?
On these though, all these rules except for number
All
12
we're talking about is
is
12.
already in play.
Exactly, that would be my point.
Exactly.
What we're really talking about is a
Just
new
add
stick- a
12.
new sticker that is
Number
not-
12.
is not available, permission is not available for people to keep their RVs on their
And number 12 gives them permission to do that and apply with the office, essentially.
Right.
Yep.
But within the discussion, my point is, I'm getting a little bit adversarial here, arguing my point is, these already exist, you just said it yourself, we have our fine system, we have our ways to do this. I just, the average member doesn't care what happens at the board meeting, they don't care what happens in their lives, let alone what's going on at their lake and what's going on until they're flying to smash with a sledgehammer or their buddy or something. I just think we can reduce it down to making that mechanism to get that permit and use our other tools, which are fantastic tools for enforcement, that I'm the scared guy to see the.
What I'm missing though is that you're taking away, and you're saying we should use our tools, but then we have a new tool, and you're saying we should use it. The new tool is that you would like to be able to do something that we haven't allowed you to be able to do forever. Okay, everyone's wanted it, we've talked about that. We're trying to provide you a mechanism to make that happen for you, but we're saying, here's our carrot, but what we want out of it, we want a certain insurances from you. And like having the concrete underneath it, whatever, we decide, and I don't care. I mean, I don't know anything about how this works, so I have no say in that. But whatever those set of rules are, if we just have it, keep it simple like what you're talking about, I feel like everybody's just gonna assume that they can get that pass. They can just come up to the office and I can now keep my trailer here, and there's not gonna, and then we're gonna be so inundated with people that didn't follow those rules because we gave them a pass without any recourse whatsoever. Now we're gonna be fighting them all the time, and by the time that we get around to it, it's already the end of the
They're
season.
not following the rules now anyway.
But what we're trying to do is to fix that.
Exactly.
The answer isn't to just let them keep breaking the rules.
Yes, my point would be, our new fine system and our new enforcement of the rules should solve all of that. What I did here was, you gotta get permission from this neighbor, you know what, I don't know who the neighbor is, and if I knew who he was, I might come kiss my butt.
If these new rules are addressing the very thing that you were talking about.
71 trailer that's a shell that's been there for 20 years. I'm more worried about that than somebody who has a $100,000 RV that they're having to move off their lot just because they are a rule follower and a good citizen, and the guy who owns a $5,000 RV, he ain't even gonna get a permit 2 years from now. So, I don't see anything wrong with doing what you want to do, getting the permit in place, doing it with the rules we have in place, and if it doesn't work, then up the enforcement, up the regulations, up the verbiage, without causing people trouble, like Warren said. My thing I always like to bring up, remember when they told us seatbelts would never be we're gonna give you a $5 fine, and and now seatbelt laws are as great as speed trap.
Let's stay on pace here. So essentially what we're trying to do is, do you want to move the
Add
vote,
what?
add the permit? Do we want to do we have an open discussion about adding a permit if the trailer, RV, camper passes protocol, essentially?
There you go. That's fine.
I move to allow campers to get a permit if they pass protocol set by the board manager.
What's protocol? I mean, that's a pretty vague thing for me to agree to, because I don't know what the protocol is.
So obviously, do we want to set protocol tonight? Because we can. I mean, what I'm saying is, I think Steve knows the lay of the land here better than probably anybody, right? So he probably knows what the nice is, what's the not nice one. I don't. Like, I couldn't tell you a nice trailer from a not nice trailer as far as if it's on a pad, if it's got the holding tank, if it's got the flat tires. Like, that's, so what I'm saying is, I don't think I have the right mindset to tell you if it's a allowed or not, like, so I couldn't do that myself.
So don't
But
use
I-
the word protocol, use manager's decision.
Manager discretion,
Discretion.
I move to allow trailers on the lot year round up to manager's discretion on,
And the permit.
based off the 12 or the 11 rules that are already in place in the bylaws.
No way I'm gonna do it. There's no way I can do that. I mean, that's the same thing, that's basically saying we should just ignore the rules as they're written in the bylaws, and I
The
don't think
rules
that
are
we can do
there
that.
already. We're just saying that he can, if they abide to those rules.
So what this number 12 is all about is providing a mechanism to allow people to keep their trailers there by getting special permission basically on a yearly basis to do so.
Yes.
And your motion was to basically just allow trailers with
Then
permission.
speak
of the
up and
officer.
say something.
He just did.
I just
Okay.
did.
Shit, then make a protocol. Speak, do something.
I just had this
What have you
discussion.
done?
But well, you're out of order, sir. I don't know what in the heck you think you're gonna attack me here. I just made my point and it's on the record. Thank you.
Then go ahead and motion something, Mike. Let's go. Let's hear it.
I
What is your solution?
am saying that I will absolutely positively not agree with that motion. That was, you're the one that made the motion.
Then make a fucking motion. Shit.
I agree with number 12. By the way, the cursing, I'm glad that we have that on video. Thank you.
Good, Mike. Good. We can cuss. It's America, man.
Well, I think, okay,
Very professional.
regardless of what.
Go ahead, George.
Whatever.
You want to talk about professional?
Hold on, whatever everyone's position is,
Exactly. Shut up.
this is something that I don't think that we can do by motion in anything, even if this is unanimous, agreed by the board. You know, Mike said there's something that's in bylaws, and that's correct. I think that we need to amend, because the bylaws, I believe, say, you know, you can't have those
Yeah.
RVs. And so it would take more than just that motion to do it. So it's fine if you want to do it, but we're gonna have to do it a little bit differently than what we're looking at now, so.
So do we need any kind of motion that says that, as far as the sticker goes, or do we?
I guess, can you explain to me what you mean exactly by sticker? Like,
Well, then we can go ahead and allow Steve to, I mean, can we do the sticker thing?
No, you can't record the mic.
No, what I'm saying is, if you can absolutely, as long as it complies with the way the bylaws read, you can, you know, if you want to say to have an RV or camper, you've got to have a sticker. As long as it doesn't go on to say and then you can keep it there year round. That's where you're gonna, you know, that motion's gonna conflict with your bylaws. Your bylaws are gonna trump. So we can absolutely work with some motions to you know, require the stickers and you know, the fee for the stickers and how they need to be placed and all that. You can absolutely motion that. Just if you want to allow them RVs year round, then we're gonna have to discuss how that language is gonna look in the bylaws and then go through that process. Does that make
So
sense?
do we wanna work on that just a little bit longer before we vote on it, or make a motion, or?
So, well, I guess, and again, maybe I missed something, but when we're talking about stickers, you mean specifically, I guess, what do you mean by the sticker? I mean, other than,
It's a permit, it says you're allowed to put that on, leave it on your lot for that season.
sure, that's absolutely permissible.
So what's your disagreement with that? If Steve says this is permissible, what's your disagreement with that?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. Could you repeat that?
If Steve says this RV fits protocol, fits, whatever, the box we want to put it in. what's
Because
your
I do not believe that the board has does the board have the right to basically say that the manager can disobey the bylaws? That's not a thing. We can't just unilaterally, people been trying to do that for 10 years.
So you want to let the neighbors vote, so how do you make that, how do you?
No, what
make
I
your
want is
idea-
a mechanism that is consistent, that says that, and I said this for a while, in that I think what she laid out here was pretty close to what I would have done, so I'm 100% in support of what this letter is about. What she's doing is she's saying, okay, we want to provide a mechanism. We don't want to have, right now, we pretty much treat everyone alike, and that's not really, even though that's the letter of the law, it's not the spirit of the law. So therefore, she's creating a mechanism to say that if you would like to keep your trailer after the time that our bylaws say you would like to keep the trailer there, that we will create a mechanism in which you can apply to do that. It's like I want to apply for a conditional use permit, I think you said, or whatever.
Well, that's what we're saying.
Yeah, I don't think that, I think that's what Lauren is suggesting, that we have a sticker for the time period that's allowed by the
But
bylaws.
all I'm saying is that, I'm all in favor if your motion was that, we should look into how we can, utilize what she's written into the fines that we had originally talked about. I'm 100% in favor of that. I want to resolve the problem that we have right now with the whole trailer thing, because it's been going on indefinitely.
Mike, these 11 things are already in the bylaws. So all the mechanism could be a checkbox that said, do they meet this? Do they meet that? Do they meet that? Do they meet that?
Right, I'm just saying that those things need to be laid out, and we need to vote on that specifically, not a motion that just says the word is going to let the manager universally make that call. And I love you, Steve, but I just don't think we want to put Steve in the position where he
Steve
has
may
to sit.
quit if you guys make me. do
That's not a
I'm just
position that
telling you
Steve should be in.
now.
So
Because
let's
I'm
ask,
not gonna take the pressure of all this.
so what do you, so Steve,
I
let's-
suggest, if you guys wanna let people, I know it's in our bylaws, that they can't keep it past that. I need to make sure with Burton that we can make this happen because of what our bylaws state. I say that we make another permit that they have to come to the office to get. Then after a certain date, if they haven't gotten that permit, say from October through the end of November, it takes some time for one guy to get around to 400 trailers between here and there. But if they haven't got that permit, we send them notice that they've been fined. I mean, that's a fine. That's on the, throw it on the codes. I've got a whole other thing here that I wanted someone to talk about tonight.
So
But-
either I'm misunderstanding something or someone else, there's some miscommunication here, because I think that we're saying the same thing, which is that we want to keep the system in place we've got now, which is not only these 11 rules, but that you can have an RV or camper on a lot from a certain time period to a certain time period, and it's got to be off after that time period. I think what we're talking about, or is being suggested, is to regulate the time period that they are allowed to have an RV or camper on. What we'll do is have them apply for a permit and get a sticker, so that way we can kind of keep track of where the RVs are, and we know when, lot X should have the RV taken off, and just a little bit more control or management of what we already allow. That's what I think you guys are saying.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Is there any legal mechanism that would allow you, when you apply for said permit, to agree to, this is true, I agree to keep it in this order, and then if you fail to comply, then you can give us the right to go on your property and to do something about it? Can you basically give us the ability to enforce it?
You can agree privately to contract about anything.
Well, that'd just be a contract on the piece of paper that is signed. Wouldn't that be legal?
Right, there are only a few things that you can't legally.
Would that protect us, so if we took it off the property, would we be legally?
Yes, if they sign a waiver that says, I understand that I am bound by the codes and laws of Sugar Valley Lake, and should I violate these codes, and should I, go through my due process, and I'm determined by the board that I'm in violation, then I consent to the board removing that RV from the property. Now, that's a different deal than, take it to a record and get it jumped into a cube or something. But they can agree to that. And if they sign that waiver and say, I've read this, I understand this, I agree to this, and then they violate that contract, then we can uphold
you
our.
have that, you have them, they can't get a permit until they sign that, so it's.
Right, I say, if that mechanism was there, I would feel much better about the whole permit process. Just so there has to be something besides just sign my name and just leave it all on him whether or not it's gonna be good.
And then the ones that don't get permits at all, don't even come in, but their camper's still there.
So then that would be, that would be a different deal, because then we don't have that waiver, and we don't have that ability to go on and remove their property.
But that's where the fine mechanism, that's where the fine
Right.
system, so either they have a permit and they sign that, or they get fined, and we have.
And after
like
a
I said,
while of not paying the fine, that's where we're talking foreclosure.
Yeah, I'm not saying I expect you to go inspect 400 trailers, I'm saying, you're a smart man, you are the lead on the street here. If you see something that is approved by you, I don't think the board should say, no, Steve, you need to run that by us.
Right.
We trust you, that's what we want to give you, is that ability to make these decisions.
But I don't think he wants that
Well,
responsibility.
I agree, like I was hypothetically saying, like,
To me, keep it simple.
Well, I think I think we're kind of getting not losing the forest for the trees here. When we were talking about the conditional use permit, for example, using that and having, that was in the context of keeping a camper or an RV on a lot after they should have been allowed to by bylaw. Now, we've all just agreed that we're no longer discussing that. We're only talking about trailers and campers and RVs on lots at different times when they're supposed to be. In which case, there wouldn't necessarily need to be a vetting process or anyone to approve anything. It's already allowed. This is just something that we're doing a permit for our records, so we know where they are, so we can have some control of this and know when they're supposed to have taken off, and that they've agreed to take it off at that certain time. So as far as, Steve having to look at the RV or camper or whatever, even if Steve said, this is a piece of junk, there's nothing in the bylaws that allows him to say, well, you can't put your property on your lot. If it's a camper, someone can put it on a lot that allows campers, in July, for example. Even if it's garbage, as long as they take it off by October or November, then it doesn't matter. I mean, you may not like the way it looks, but they're in strict reading of the law, of our bylaws, they're compliant with that. So as far as putting any burden on Steve, I don't think we need to worry about that because Steve couldn't do anything if he wanted to. Because, someday we may get to that point if we get to Corey's point of talking about some mechanism to extend that, but we're not talking about that today. We're just talking about what rules are we gonna follow under the laws we have now, which in this period of time, they have a camper. And so, again, there wouldn't be necessarily a vetting process, it's just an application for a permit that really should be granted basically unilaterally. They just need to sign, pay the fee, and then sign says, I'm gonna follow the code and that sort of thing. Does that make sense?
As of right now, during that time,
Right.
in our bylaws, there is no fee for a camper fee, for a temporary summer camping fee.
Not right now.
It's just that we want to see the registration and in the window, basically. I mean, that's the way it all reads now.
Does that make sense to you, Mike? Do you have a?
Yeah, and I assume that if we did what she was talking about here, the whole point of that is that obviously if they don't do it, there's a mechanism eventually to kick them out. And we're not kicking them out, but basically fine them out, basically. So they, I get that. I would assume that the amount of money somebody would pay for this special permit would be significantly less than that phone. That's the point. So I'm like, I'm gonna give you $50 to cover this whole period of time versus I'm gonna get fined $50 a month or whatever. I would assume that's what we're talking about.
Well, I think just like the fines, we're not doing it to create a source of income, we're doing it to keep the place clean, right? So like, if they're gonna sign off on this piece of paper saying, yes, I would leave my camper here for 4 months and I'll put it on a pay, whatever the parameters are, they're gonna be good standing people, right? Like, that's what I think it's more of, is like, just kind of holding people accountable to a certain level that says, we don't wanna find people. Like, in a perfect world, we don't find anybody, they're doing the right thing, right?
But now
Nobody wants to
you're
find
talking
anybody,
about
but we all want
after
people to follow the rules.
Right.
Exactly. So what Barrett said is that essentially, instead of fining them, they come and pay a permit, which is less than the fine, just to,
Which basically has to go down through the checklist to get the permit. Right?
yeah.
Well, the checklist talk about like rules 1 through 11?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, that's simple enough, right? You all right, Jay?
And you're only talking about this permit as being from April to November.
That's right, because
I don't think that's what you're talking about.
November.
You're not talking that way.
They're talking about November through April.
That's not what he's saying.
No, they're not, I'm talking November to April.
Yeah.
I'm talking
He's
November.
not.
No, April to November.
so what I'm talking about is, I'm saying, my position is, you guys are really free to make rules, on between April to November, during the spring and summer months, because your bylaws permit campers and RVs to be on these lots during that period of time. Now, from November to April, your bylaws say that they can't be on there at all. So you guys can change it, you're empowered to change your bylaws, but you cannot do that by motion. So there's nothing you guys can do here tonight to say, okay, I want to allow a camper in November if they do X, Y, and Z. you guys, you have that ability, but you have to do that in a different way than a motion tonight. And so, if that's something you guys want to work on, then that's fine. I'm just saying that we can have a very robust discussion about any rules and regulations and anything you want to do on April to November, but it's really futile to have any discussion on rules between November to April, because they're not allowed in any event. I mean, you can make the rule that they have to be painted red to be here, but it doesn't matter if they can't be here anyway.
So you're saying we have to change the bylaws, and first allow them?
Yes.
That's a bylaw, so it has to go through a vote of the majority, right? It has to be on the ballot, and
That's right. And you guys absolutely can go through the process of changing the bylaws, but
everyone has to be notified.
your hierarchy here is your articles of incorporation, and then your, covenants, restrictions, and then bylaws. And that's what you guys do here. So your motions here are subject as subordinate to all those documents. And so you guys can change those documents, but again, we all are subordinate to those documents. Does that make sense?
So let it move on.
Okay. Next item, virtual meetings. Move all virtual meetings to Sugar Valley.
That was a question Mr. Syke brought up last meeting. If we're gonna continue virtual meetings, we said we could put that off till this time because it was gonna be at Sugar Valley. And we wanted to know whether because people can get signal out here to watch the meeting and be able to know when they are getting closer to be able to come in. Over there, there's no signal, like last meeting, Rod had to sit out there, he couldn't watch the meeting, he had no clue what time it was getting close, how close we were getting for him to come in.
And even a bigger point than that, I had no reference to what the meeting had been about, and there might have been some subject where somebody who's watching this meeting out there in the parking lot now, when they have their 3 minutes to talk to you guys, maybe they want to talk to you about this permit thing we just went through right here, and they wouldn't know about it without service in Hidden Valley. So I'm still all for having all of your board meetings here until the COVID thing is just doing it for YouTube. Everybody should be able to find a way to watch this meeting on YouTube. That's just my opinion. And
I motion to move all virtual meetings to Sugar Valley.
The one problem I got with that is, I'd like to know a little more, we can check around the lake and see what our feedback is over there, is that what people are wanting to do? Or is there any way we could get a booster to our internet or something over there, Steve? I mean, I know it's rough over there.
they're just so disinterested, it's not
I think it's more they
It's
should
not on the
just
radar.
broadcast there versus broadcasting from here gets it wider. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah,
my thing is.
and I don't really guess I have a big problem with this, I mean,
It's only a 15-minute drive over here to be able to watch this meeting live in the parking lot. And I'm only in here because I'm on committee reports up here. To do that, but point being, they can watch live, can't watch the meeting live and get in Bell. And that was a huge, literally, I probably would do it again, just as a silent way, as a passive aggressive way of me giving you guys the salute. It's just one of those things. It's just, if you're interested, this is the place, this is where it happens.
and I don't guess I have a big problem.
I mean, if somebody really throws a fit and complains about it, you can deal with it then, but I just,
I think we need to get something in place and get things open back up. I don't think we can stay closed forever.
No, we can't.
that's a city or county mandate, right? So we
Not-
have,
No.
Boone County did not adopt that mandate. Charles it out.
I will say this, I mean, there's things that we can do, incorporate like FM transmitters, so it easy to sit in your car and listen to it on the radio. But the question that would have to We can come up with a solution, that's not an issue.
So the
It's probably not.
the cheapest way to do it, not spend much money, is basically just to have it
It's
here.
just a house.
Yeah, have it
Because
be-
otherwise you have to look at like a mixer, an FM transit, or those kind of things. And yes, you can get low cost, but on the flip side of that, if you're only gonna use it for 1 or 2 meetings, is it worth it?
Make your motion, Cory.
I make a motion to have all virtual meetings at Sugar Valley until we start having in-person meetings again.
I second.
There we go, motion on the floor and a second. Do I have further discussion on that? With there being none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next item of business is fines rewording, has left us, code fine. Do you wanna go over that, Steve? Or do you want me to?
I need to talk to you guys or Burton or somebody. 'Cause I think maybe I did send an email to you on this, Burton.
You may have, Steve, I've been,
I know you've been busy.
I had COVID the first part of this month, and then I took office, and I had been
Yeah.
out of office.
So anyway, what I'm getting feedback from a lot of people around, especially around the Sugar Valley. But we've got things in here that are rules, regulations, it's just not, restrictions and, covenants and restrictions. And basically, that's all we've covered in our fine schedule is the partial list of covenants and restrictions. But you can take building permits or building regulations, boating regulations, fencing regulations. That's been a huge one around here. Why are they not getting fined of anything for having the wrong kind of fence up? They didn't even ask for a permit on it. But you're talking about fining us for one of those items that's on there. And I really think we need some kind of rewording
Well,
that covers all that.
okay, so, first of all, I'm very excited to talk about this. It's something that I absolutely and 100% agree with you. And maybe you don't recall exactly, but when I kind of first brought the draft for you guys to approve, I intended to, and hopefully I did, tell you at the time that this is a very incomplete list. That you
Yes.
really
Yeah.
need to flesh this
Starting
out.
point.
Right, so everything that you're talking about, I'm 100% agree. In fact, I intended from before we even began this, that all this would be.
Yes.
But what I ran into is, when I was preparing that list, basically I was looking at the covenants, restrictions, and bylaws is what I was going on with.
Right.
And those are very, very thin on things that are prohibited in code. And what I found in there is what I included. As you mentioned, it's not much. One of the things that I talked about back then, and I'm happy to talk about now, is you need to develop these codes. We need to talk about what we want to allow, what we don't want to allow, and then codify those things. Create a little body of code for animal regulations, for fencing regulations, for whatever, and you guys will pass those and adopt those. And you guys, and this will be a situation kind of where we just talked about a minute ago, you guys can get as detailed and oppressive as you want, or as loose and free as you want. Now, right now, it could be free or loose. There's nothing. There's no restriction or regulation on virtually anything.
Yeah.
If you guys want to say you can only have 2 dogs per lot or something like that, or if you no more than 3 vehicles in a lot, or whatever, you can pull the codes from Mound City and look at, say, we like this. This is something that doesn't really fit the way you like to do things, or But I can bring things to you, but I can't do that for you. You guys need to make a decision what you want and what you don't want as part of your community and what you want this to look like. But these are, again, I couldn't agree more with what you bring up. I absolutely want to bring up these things and adopt these things because we don't have anything when we really need it. And Lee, and Lycine, or Latha, or Gardner, you know, whatever. And you guys can kind of read through them in between meetings and then bring back your revisions and drafts, and we can talk about what you wanted to include, what you didn't want to include, and we can really start hammering out what sort of big building regulations, what kind of animal regulations, what kind of boating, what kind of fencing, what kind of, you know, lawn, can you grow corn, you know, whatever, it's up to you guys. But right now, again, the only thing we have is what I found in the covenants, restrictions, and bylaws, which again, it is, as we're talking about, woefully inadequate. That doesn't do anything. And I would say it doesn't do anything, but you know, it doesn't really touch what I think we hope to accomplish, which is clean everything up, clean this place up, right? Have it be a nice community where people want to live and bring their kids to, and want to vote.
But they're right on this stuff too, because, you know, I know there's a lot of stuff being built everywhere, here, there, and whatever, that aren't following
And so,
protocols and,
and that's why we said, hopefully, I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but you guys passed the process to begin regulating that. If someone is building something in violation of our codes, we now have that process set up. It's in
so
that.
technically, these are in there.
Well, some of the building regulations are, yes.
Well, your voting regulations say you have to have a permit.
But I think we,
Well-
fine system, right?
Yeah, I don't know, well, I don't know if it was or not, I'm gonna say, no, well, I think it was, you have to have a permit to vote in that for whatever, yeah. So if that's, again, we just made a blanket, it's be all the time, so it's in place right now. As far as I know, no citations have been written just yet, but
The only other one I see that might be an issue is the fencing thing. I don't know, does it say anything in there?
See,
about
there
the
is-
It does.
There is specific fences that it says you can't use, or you can't do. And
Then it's enforcement.
is
and I
that,
know the architecture committee is talking to them.
see, where are you reading that from? What document is it you're looking for?
Was it the rules and regulations?
That's the rules and
Okay,
regulations.
so again, I think I mentioned last time, I didn't have access to these rules and regulations, I couldn't find them on my, again,
Right.
the only documents I relied on in preparing what I brought to you was the rule, covenants and restrictions and the bylaws. So, if, to the extent, you know, we can adopt this and then, you know, start, you know, put it in the fine schedule, and that's all you have to do. We already have the process. If somebody is violating one of our codes, we can say, you know, it's a violation of the fencing regulations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's where I
subject to the
just,
fine.
I just kind of wanted to see something that said something more like, any, violation
So,
according to our rules, regulations,
Well-
reservations, covenants.
do you have a copy of what the process you guys adopted last time, or not last time, but a few months ago?
Of the fine schedule.
Not the fine schedule, so you guys adopted two different documents. One was the fine schedule, and one was the actual process that said,
Process.
yeah, if someone is in violation, then they get a 10-day notice, and then they can request a hearing, or pay the fine, and on and on. That, you have a copy of that process, that other document.
It's right there. This one, right now.
So this says that the process you got, the following process and fine schedule shall apply to violations of any of the covenants or restrictions. The enforcing body, the board director of the law. Okay, so that's the language I guess you want to clean up because we come to it. Because again, I was only basing this off the covenants and restrictions. So maybe what we should do is, you know, draft this to say, shall apply to violations of any code of any document that, you know, adopted by the Sugar Valley Lakes and Hidden Valley Homeowners Association. Because right now, what we've got is just the covenants, restrictions, and the bylaws. So that's an easy fix. We can do that next meeting. And then again, I would also really like you guys to, and again, if you want me to bring you something to look over, if you guys want to do something up, that's fine. But, you know, I don't think anyone can disagree, that we need to flesh this out a little bit, and how you guys want, you know, you guys want to allow livestock, if you guys want to allow people to raise horses or have chickens or, or whatever.
Take me to.
If you wanna allow it, that's fine, if you don't wanna allow it, that's fine, but, you know, I think these are things that we need to talk about and think about, because
Try.
right now, we just have very little. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, anyways, I will fix up this language and bring it back to you guys, and then you guys can adopt it if you want, and next time we will have that more broad language. And again, if you guys can look at and think about some things.
That would help me a bunch, because if I'm gonna write out these citations, I will take that page out of there, that, whatever that violation is. I'll copy that page off. I will highlight that exact thing that I'm fining them for.
Sure.
Send it with the fine to them, say they have 21 days or whatever whatever that says, 21 days to
Correct it,
pay it,
request
or
a
correct,
hearing.
correct it, or, yeah. That gives me something to go off of, other than just the covenants and restrictions, because there's a bunch more rules in here that are being broken,
I agree. And
probably more so than
Because
the
see,
covenants and
maybe one thing I
restrictions.
need from you is if you could send me, again, I couldn't find this. I don't know why, I just couldn't find it. If you could send me, you know, the dispensing regulations or anything that you are relying on to find violations, that way I can make sure that they're listed or right.
Okay.
And all that.
Okay.
Okay. I think that's all the old business we had.
Is there anything on the budget?
Oh, yeah, I forgot that. Anything on the budget, Steve?
You guys got a copy? Draft 21, budget draft.
Okay.
I think I gave you one last month
Yeah.
to look at for a
Is
month.
it the same as the last?
Yes, I believe so.
Is there anything that, you have questions about?
What was our year-over-year net profits, 19 to 20? You have that?
19,220?
Well, I mean, yeah, what do we end 19 at versus 20, just see
Hold
what,
on.
if you have it handy, I'm just curious.
Well, 19's gonna be about 254. About 254,933. After we add the PPP loan, okay? But I said we need to move, and that's what I'm thinking. In 2019, the profit was
Oh, wow,
21,393.
jeez.
Yeah, it's a remarkable increase. Lot sales, you know, was almost 66,000 of that.
Huge.
We got the 70,000 in the PPP loan.
But that's not baked into that 254 already, right?
Pardon?
That's not baked into the 254.
Yeah, I put that.
That
in
is,
there.
okay. But still, the 170 was once
Yeah,
8x.
so,
Wow.
yeah.
Janet, are we applying that second round of
We don't
PPP?
qualify.
We can't, we weren't down 25%.
But there is that tax credit, if we didn't lay anybody off, you see that tax credit?
Employee tax credit, but we have to be down 50% in order to qualify for it.
That's gonna be, really?
You have to be down 50% and then not over, reduction of the 80% for a number of months, and we don't qualify for it either. But we got the first round, so we should be happy with it. Do you wanna go ahead and hold the budget until next period to pass? Actually, it should be passed tonight if we could.
Might have to, right?
Yeah, because it is January. I entertain a motion if I could.
So, you know, yeah.
what?
Well,
15,000.
see, a lot of that money came back into miscellaneous income. Because you're selling a load, they buy a load. You see what I'm saying? That's going charged against us, but they're also putting money back into.
So
I
that
probably should have raised that up, but
well, that won't be double, it'll be more than that, but because they're paying for a little too.
they're paying for their load and the load on the association. And
Okay.
then the two loads we get charged for, it shows up,
I just,
but we'll get money back.
I just want to make sure that seems to be one big thing I got, no complaints.
I didn't get the 2022 budget either.
The what?
The 2021 budget, am I looking right at it?
It's right behind the minutes, I think.
I told them to.
Corey,
Okay,
find it?
no, but I'll look it up on this.
You're on the financial, the draft, the say draft. There you go.
Yeah,
There you go. What we used total of the year.
I make a motion to accept the budget.
Mike's made a motion to, Mike's made a motion to accept the budget.
This says 11/30/20, but it's the 2021 budget, correct?
Right, yeah.
Okay, I kept looking, okay. Yes.
I've got a motion on the floor to accept the budget.
I'll second it.
Lauren, got a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the budget? Any questions? Okay, with there being none, all those in favor of accepting the budget, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Any other old business? Okay, is there any need to go into executive session tonight? Okay, we'll go, with that, we'll go into the open forum. Is there anyone who wants to speak in the open forum? Okay. Under new business, I have, just want to make the announcement, the annual members meeting is Saturday, 9 a.m. at the 4-H building at the Mound City Fairgrounds. And committee reports.
Tell our committee for the meeting, are gonna meet out here at 9 o'clock.
Okay,
So because we have to be able to check, make sure people are members,
right.
instead of them being down at the fairgrounds. And we've got a box that people have been bringing in too. We've grabbed up from over there when we can. That, we've got 2 boxes. What I'd like to do is let the girls start, counting votes. I think it's Vicky Cap, Charlotte Ryan-Earson, Karen, Vicky's chairman, Karen Barrett, and,
Rhonda Hicks.
Rhonda Higgs, yes. And most of them I've done before, but what I'd like to do, since we're split up from down at Fairgrounds, that's the box that we've been using. What I'd like to do is let the girls ship them over into the other box and let them start counting, take that box down, for the meeting. They can already have, I know there's been years that we've ended up waiting quite a while for a tally, so if that's all right with everybody. And
You're just gonna have to run that box back up here.
Yeah.
yeah, as soon as it gets to the start of the
Yeah, they
meeting,
close,
yeah, we'll have it run back out here. Okay.
Okay, I've got an audit committee report. The audit committee met on January 20th, 2021. Committee reviewed the documents and records for Sugar Valley and Hen Valley Association list of below for the month of October through December 2020. Bank statements for the operating account for Farmers and Merchants Bank for the above months, transaction detail for the above month, profit and loss statement for January through December 2020, balance sheets for the above month, profit and loss statements for the above month, budget for 2020, actual 2020 to actual 2019 comparison, vendor balance detail as of December 31st, 2020. All checks, deposits, and miscellaneous items were reconciled between bank statements and the transaction detail. All checks were double signed as required except for 2. All voids were matched to the bank statement except for 2. All outstanding invoices were matched to the vendor balance detail except for 1. A more detailed budget was provided and reviewed to the profit and loss for December 2020 year to date. No discrepancies were found on the above documents except for the checks that were not double signed, the voids not matched, and the outstanding invoice not on the vendor balance detail. All of these are minor issues. Respectfully submitted, Michael Iverson, Chairman. Any other committee reports? Rod?
Architectural committee, surprisingly, pretty active during the winter time. A lot of permit, applications have been coming through. No problem, runs smooth. He does a great job of, guiding people through the process, so when they get to the committee, it's really simple to do. So, that's the report, and thanks, Steve.
Rod, one question for you while I got you here, and I want to put you on the spot. Well, it seems like we're having trouble with carports, with not getting them passed. There's nowhere in our book that says we can't have a carport as long as it's gonna meet and sightly and put in the right location.
Right.
Why are we getting denied?
I think the last one was approved only because a committee person or two just abstained from voting. Because
It was an RV port, it was actually a bigger one.
which is, I think that there's a little bit of a disagreement because it's not addressed, it's not in any writings of anywhere, was approved, not approved. But, I think it's personal preferences are sometimes over that issue are involved because there is no guidance anywhere. And maybe there needs to be some kind of guidance from the board.
That's what I was hoping for.
Because, most of the requests for the carports are the new construction, metal ones that everybody gets for $1,200 or whatever, for the basic one, and all the way up to $3,000 for an RV one.
Yeah.
And it's not a pole barn, it's not a piece of junk.
No? But if they start putting junk under it, we can find it.
There you go.
Now, we got that in place, so.
I can't speak for the committee, but, it has been discussed, and it is a problem, and probably we're just, looking for the board to, say what really needs to happen there.
I have a question. If the architectural committee turns down somebody and they believe that that's not correct, and they're, that they weren't following rules, whatever the reason, can they then come to a board meeting and then address the board to, is that the process they would do to get that overturned?
I don't think there is a real process. I tell you, this is from my view of what happens. committee, and Steve is brought in on the discussion, discusses whatever the point is with, and it can be just, it's
Minute.
a lot of different, there's a lot of different reasons. Usually they're small, pretty technical, and almost always, Steve goes to the person that applied for it and asks them to resubmit, make some changes, answer the question, if it is just a question, if someone's just
Yeah.
submitted. Sometimes it's just saying, if it's a carport and it doesn't list the materials or whatever, or even a size, sometimes something will get by, but there is no real procedure. It's usually handled between Steve and the person making the
But if
application.
it couldn't be handled, could it go to the board, or would it, basically, would they have to sue Sugar Valley and say, you know what, I'm gonna do this anyway, talk to my attorney? I mean, I just didn't know how that was supposed to work.
I suppose somebody could do that, but we've never had an instance where somebody did not adjust their application to meet the criteria. And resubmitted to Steve, and then it came back to the committee, and it was approved. And I think the carport thing, because there were questions about it not being mentioned in any of our regulations, is one of those things where it got,
Well, it seemed to me if it's not mentioned, you can't ban it. It seems like that's kind of the rule we follow with everything else, that if it's not specifically mentioned, it's allowed. I mean, I think that's generally the way the law works. I would assume that our process here would be the same.
well, murder is not mentioned in our rules either, but I feel like it's sometimes.
I think that would count as, the laws of the state.
Ron, I got a question for you. I have a buddy who was gonna pour a pad for a basketball court, like a half court. Does he have to get that approved?
I think, I don't think it's specifically addressed. I mean, it probably just comes under a patio.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. He asked me that. I don't think so, but okay.
Because the purpose is, it's a piece of concrete is,
Yeah.
he can land a helicopter on it if you got the right person, you know, so.
So is there anything we need to do to
Well,
help that
I
situation?
don't know, because there's only two issues really that I ever really have out here. There's getting to be more and more people wanting to put carports in, or even camper ports, because they don't want the UV rays, even when they're camping, if they want the shade in the summer. But it's those, and it's, connexes. And right now, basically, the connexes are being mixed. And it doesn't say anything in there about connexes either, but the connexes, I know they're the most secure building you can put up right now to keep something from getting stolen.
Wasn't,
If they're put in the right place, I don't believe they should have to put brand new siding on them and a roof over them to have them. I do believe they should be a neat and sightly, maybe a fresh coat of paint, whatever, not a bunch of rust, all that. But I think we're getting a bunch of them in here that
Are people living in them or storage?
storage mostly.
storage, but there's always, even amongst our Facebook pages and communications between members and whatever, it's, you would have thought that bad would have worn off with people that thought it was just bad of tiny homes without storage, like that, whatever, but it's not going away, and even municipalities are regulating it and saying in certain situations it is
Yeah.
acceptable, so that's, whenever you're gonna spend the money to send out, that's just one of the things on that long list of stuff that needs to be addressed in the future.
You wouldn't believe how many people I've heard. Now, this is mostly over here, but I've heard a lot of it over there too,
People love, like you say, they're like a bank wall.
because these tiny homes are getting so popular. They would lots rather see a 400 square footage. They'd lots rather see a 400 square foot tiny home on the lot next to them than a trailer.
Yeah.
And that, there's some sense there, but you also, when you put in living quarters, you have to have a holding tank.
Exactly.
That's a little different than the trailer deal. question was why the carport, because it doesn't say anything in there about them. As long as they're of a neat site lead and they're put where they should be,
Right.
I couldn't see why we're not getting them passed. Because we are getting quite a few people asking about it.
I think the main reason for just being candid about it is that we're all individuals, we live in different neighborhoods and have different preferences, and you're living in a $250,000 lakefront home. And across the street is somebody who uses theirs for camping. Somebody may not like their RV anyway, let alone the shelter, the carport over it, it's just gonna be a shell when that RV is taken somewhere else for the winter time and storage. So it's sometimes just, it's a personal preference,
Well, and I think that argument could be made for no offense, the machine sheds and that are going up. I mean, if you live in a $250,000 house, you wanna look out your front window and see a machine shed.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think the argument could go on all aspects of what we do. I mean, it's at what level do you wanna say?
Also, you're gonna give people freedom to do what they wanna do, just, you can't paint the box so small,
Yeah.
you know.
And these common carports are the most common ones, you just make a phone call and 2 days later, there it is, look, and it looks good. and it's Pretty sure they don't go away with that.
Well, I think, I agree with your point in general, that I think Mike said it, if it's not specifically disallowed, and it's hard to point to something and say, we can't have it, but that board is empowered to make decisions, and I suppose, I was kind of looking here to see if there's some sort of appeal process, and I don't see that there is. That may be something that you want to consider, that if someone is turned down by the architecture committee, maybe that there's some procedure that we can put in place that says they can appeal that decision up to the board of directors, and you guys can take a look at it. There's some.
That's where I think it ought to be.
But it sounds like you guys are kind of coaching them how to make it right, correct? Like, if they come in and say, we want to do this, you just say, do these 3 things, they resubmit it, we're good to go.
If it's fixable, and it usually is, if Steve cooperates with them and the committee, and it really makes the committee's job so easy. And it's not anybody getting upset over anything, and
No.
it's.
I've pretty well gotten to know what you guys do require, and I talked to them about that before I ever, even if they send it in, I'm gonna call them back and tell them. Now, I know the committee's not gonna go with this because it's not 10 feet off, and it's actually not behind your living quarters. Has to be at least even with your living quarters. I talked to them a little bit about that, and they always change their mind, and that's why all my scratching is the designs.
That's what we figure, because you can tell that you worked on it a little bit before it gets to us.
Yeah.
So have we had anybody not get one passed yet?
Not in the final answer.
I don't
think
think
because
it's a
it was too close to the property line or something like that.
Right.
They had to restate it.
And it says that, you gotta be 10 feet inside the line.
Yeah.
So that's
But
fine.
it wasn't specifically about it being a carport. Nobody's been rejected because we don't allow carports. So,
Okay.
it's not what I'm supposed to say we don't allow, because we really do for years.
So my thoughts on that is if we have a situation like that arises that the board or the committee doesn't pass it, then they have the right to bring it to the board.
Okay.
And have the board.
I don't think the committee would feel like you're taking anything away from us.
Yeah.
That's what I'll have to tell them, because I haven't gotten it back in an email yet, but I was told that this last one I just put in was for a carport. And he said, by looking at what's come in, he said, I'm gonna have to decline it. And I asked him why. I said, we need to talk, because I've looked all through that, and as long as they do this, this, and this, I think we're putting ourselves in for a lawsuit. And that's just my opinion. I don't know.
I don't even know if it'd be a lawsuit, like I say, it's like, for instance, if I told you that story, I mean, presented their point of view to you as a board, then
Well, and that, I agree that there should be some sort of appeals process, and that's fine. And really, we should put that in writing and codify that somewhere, but in fairness, I'd ask you, if you would have a problem with that, then when you do turn someone down, I would ask you to inform whoever you turn down, you have the right to deal with up to the board of directors so that they can,
I think probably in the process, the speed works with it so close.
Yeah.
Okay, as long as somebody tells them at some point.
Yeah. If they ever get declined, I can tell them, well, I mean, you've got the right to.
We have very little, we have no contact, really, no contact unless somebody.
Okay, that's fine, I just wanna make sure they're rejected, however that's,
I make a motion with, any more committees?
That's what I said, is there any other committee reports?
Not that I know of.
Okay,
I make a motion with during this meeting.
okay, I got a motion on the floor.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Warren, I would, I promise to get working on that water over there.